Welcome to While We Were Distracted, the podcast where we explore topics that often get overshadowed in the rush of daily life. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps.
You've probably seen the images, right? The sugar skulls, those vibrant marigolds, maybe the elegant skeletons. It's all visually incredible. Dia de los Muertos. But there's so much more going on beneath the surface than just aesthetics.
Yeah, we're not looking at something spooky here. This is really a deep dive into a celebration of life with, well, 3,000 years of history packed into it. So our mission today, we want to extract that foundational cosmology, look at the amazing cultural fusion, and really understand how these ancient rituals became the global celebration we see now.
Absolutely. And it's fundamentally about welcoming. The holiday itself, running from October 31st to November 2nd, is all about families setting up spaces to welcome back the souls of their relatives.
Just for a short reunion, yeah.
With food and drink and just remembering together. It's this amazing blend, true syncretism of Mesoamerican roots, European religion, specifically Catholicism, and Spanish culture.
And that welcome is very structured, isn't it? The timing is specific. It really is. The tradition says that the gates, the doorway between worlds, opens at midnight, October 31st. And that's when the spirits of children, Los Angelitos, they return first for 24 hours.
Oh, okay.
Then they're followed by the adult spirits who come back and are celebrated on November 2nd.
Okay, let's go right back then. 3,000 years, pre-Columbian Mesoamerica. You talk about the Aztecs and Nahua peoples in central Mexico.
Yeah.
Their whole view of the universe wasn't straight line, it was a cycle. Death wasn't some final endpoint, it was just, well, part of the deal, an integral part of how things worked.
That's so crucial to get. Death was just part of life. But actually dying, that was only the beginning of something huge. Once someone passed, their soul was thought to start this epic journey through Chikunamiclan, which roughly means the place of the 9 rivers. It was this long, really difficult trial. It could take the soul like several years to even complete.
Several years, wow. And navigating 9 levels of this, Chikunamiclan.
Mm.
Only after all that could the soul finally arrive at Mictlan, the final resting place.
That's it. Mictlan was the destination, the place of rest. But Chikunamiclan, that was the tough journey you had to endure to get there.
Okay, that detail actually raises a big question for me about the modern holiday. The ofrendas we see today, the offerings, they seem geared towards this short 24-hour visit. How does that connect back to an ancient journey that took years?
Right, and that really shows you the shift in purpose over time. Those ancient Nahua rituals, which actually used to happen in August, they were focused on providing real practical help. Families left food, water, tools, not just as symbolic gifts for a quick pop-in, but as essential supplies, sustenance really, to help the dead soul survive that incredibly tough multi-year trip through the 9 levels.
Okay.
So that ancient practice of providing aid, that's the real root, the foundation of the offerings we see today.
Okay, so if the Aztecs saw death passage on this multi-year scale, how did everything get compressed into just 3 days in November when Spain arrived in the 16th century? That's the collision point, isn't it?
It's a classic example of syncretism, yeah. You've got a couple things happening. First, back in Europe, there were already ancient pagan festivals around the dead in the fall. Think bonfires, feasting. And the Catholic Church had sort of absorbed these into All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day, November 1st and 2nd. The dates were kind of set.
Okay, so the timing was already there in the European calendar. And what specific traditions did the Spanish conquistadors bring over from medieval Spain?
Well, they brought customs tied specifically to those dates. People would bring wine and this special bread, pan de anima spirit bread, to the grave sites. They'd cover the graves with flowers, light candles. The idea was to guide the souls back. But maybe even more important than the specific actions was the Spanish view of death they brought. It was, well, frankly, darker, more somber, heavily shaped by their own recent experiences with things like the bubonic plague back home, lots of fear associated with death.
Right. So it's not just a merging of calendars, it's a merging of moods almost.
Right.
You have the Aztec perspective, death as a continuation, maybe even noisy, necessary, a journey hitting this Spanish view of death as quiet, somber, something to be mourned.
Exactly.
And the holiday that comes out of it blends the Aztec practice of honoring and aiding the dead with the fixed dates from the Catholic calendar. Kind of force this blend we see.
Precisely. The indigenous communities were quite successful, really, in embedding their own traditions of celebration and remembrance into the structure that the Catholic holy days provided.
Which leads us to something we should probably clear up. El Dia de los Muertos is not just Mexican Halloween.
Right.
I mean, they're close on the calendar, and you might see costumes, but the fundamental belief is totally different. It's about celebration, not scares.
Yeah, the absolute core belief anchoring the whole thing is this. For just a little while, the border, the veil between the spirit world and our world, it dissolves. The dead can awaken, they can come back, and they can join the living to feast, drink, dance. Just be together. They're not ghosts haunting the place, they're honored guests coming home.
And the ofrenda is essentially the welcome mat, right? The centerpiece of that welcome.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what goes on to those home altars.
Oh, they're fascinating. Often multi-tiered, very personal. You'll always see some key elements like water because the souls are thirsty after their journey. Salt for purification. Copal incense is very common. And they're just bursting with color, usually from bright marigolds, the cempasúchil, and maybe red coxcombs. The whole altar is like a bridge, loaded with the favorite foods and drinks of the person being remembered.
And the symbols everyone recognizes. The calacas, the skeletons, and the calaveras, the skulls. But there's one figure that's everywhere, La Calavera Catrina, and she has this really interesting kind of political backstory.
She really does. La Calavera Catrina, the elegant skull. She actually started life in the early 20th century with a printer and cartoonist named José Guadalupe Posada. He did this etching, you see, of a female skeleton, but dressed to the nines in European fashion. Big fancy hat, elegant clothes.
And he wasn't just drawing a cool picture, was he? There was a point.
Oh, absolutely. It was sharp social commentary. Posada created her not really to celebrate the holiday, but to satirize politicians and critique Mexican society at the time. Catrina was basically making fun of Mexicans who were trying too hard to adopt European styles and attitudes, turning their backs on their own indigenous heritage to seem more sophisticated, more continental.
Which is incredibly ironic, isn't it? That this symbol, created specifically to criticize adopting European styles and maybe commercialism, is now probably the most commercialized image. The beautifully made-up face, the fancy dress. It's the global face of the holiday.
It is deeply ironic. That tension, though, between the original critique and how it's celebrated now, maybe that's part of why she's lasted.
Yeah, the dynamic keeps it alive. Okay, so moving from symbols to, well, sustenance. This reunion needs food. You mentioned the pan de ánimas from Spain.
Right, and that evolved into pan de muerto. It's this sweet bread, often decorated, that's really traditional during the holiday, a direct echo of that older spirit bread.
What other kinds of foods are central to the feast?
Well, alongside those amazing decorated sugar skull candies, families often make special dishes. Things like spicy dark chocolate are common, and atole, which is this warm, thick, corn-based drink. You have to remember, this is a big welcome feast for guests who've theoretically traveled a very long way.
So true.
Now, thinking about how the holiday itself traveled, its prominence really shifted geographically, especially in the modern era. For a long time, it was most intensely celebrated out in the more rural, indigenous parts of Mexico. It didn't really start spreading widely into the big cities until, say, the 1980s. That's when it became more of a national thing, not just regional.
And then the world started paying attention, too. That recognition became official in 2008, right?
Yes. That was a huge moment. UNESCO added Mexico's indigenous festivity dedicated to the dead to its big list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity. That really gave it massive global status and respect.
And lately, Hollywood has played a huge role in its visibility. There's this interesting feedback loop now between movies and real life, like the James Bond film Spectre in 2015. It opened with this gigantic fictional Day of the Dead parade in Mexico City.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, how art affects reality. That movie parade looked so spectacular that it actually inspired the officials in Mexico City to stage their first massive real public Day of the Dead parade the very next year in 2016.
Wow.
And then, of course, you had the Disney Pixar movie Coco in 2017, which is basically a, $175 million love letter to the holiday. It brought the whole cosmology, the music, the look of it all to millions globally, showed that journey to the land of the dead.
Yeah, incredible film. And this visibility isn't just out there internationally. It's becoming really relevant here in the United States, too. I mean, as of 2024, you've got something like, over 68 million people in the U.S. with some Mexican ancestry. So the tradition's visibility and popularity are growing fast outside Mexico itself.
Definitely.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, what does it all mean? We've tracked this tradition across millennia. It survived conquest, blended ancient beliefs with Catholicism, navigated cultural critiques, and now it's a global phenomenon. But the core, the heart of it, seems the same. It's fundamentally a time to celebrate and remember loved ones who've passed on, and importantly, to see death differently, not just as an ending, but as a natural, integrated part of being human.
Beautifully put.
And if you want to wish someone well at this time, the phrase is Feliz Dia de los Muertos.
Exactly. And, while the customs keep evolving, look at the scale difference between an intimate family ofrenda in a rural village and that massive movie-inspired city parade. That underlying tension we talked about persists. Between the ancient purpose and the modern show, think about Catrina again, the critique of excess becoming high fashion, the fictional parade becoming real. It does make you wonder, doesn't it? And this is maybe something for you, the listener, to think about. The original idea was quiet, personal support for a soul on a multi-year journey. Now, parts of the celebration are huge, public, loud, almost cinematic. What gets lost, or maybe what gets gained, when a deeply personal, ancient spiritual practice becomes this globally recognized urban spectacle? It's that fascinating question of enduring purpose versus evolving presentation.
Don't forget to like and subscribe for the next episode on While We Were Distracted.